Humanity has hundreds of stories regarding the creation of the universe, the history of the planet, and the birth of mankind. Some of these stories are oral traditions and are handed down to subsequent generations in the form of songs and folklore. Other civilizations managed to record these tales in writing, forming the many religions and mythologies that we know today. Giving the subject of religion and mythology no more than a cursory glance, one may be forgiven for believing that these myths of history and creation are the misguided accounts of an ignorant and superstitious people. Truly, the stories of myth are easy to dismiss. Modern man has, for the most part, accepted the assertions of psychologists regarding these ancient tales. The gatekeepers of psychology, men like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, have suggested that the stories told by ancient man are no more than the symbolic retellings of a conflict occurring in the psyche of the individual. They reason that the gods of ancient man are no more than different aspects of the self. For example, each mythology seems to have at least one good god and one trickster or villain god, and these two gods represent the internal and external battle of good versus evil within the heart of every individual. With the wild tales of mythology being food for the incredulous, and often describing impossible happenings, this view of mythology is understandable. This interpretation of mythology, that mythology is no more than the embodiment of an individual's and society's inner struggles, is echoed in the universities, Discovery Channel specials, and everything in between. But there is something missing from this explanation. The gaping hole in this reasoning comes from the incredible consistencies woven into man's many creation stories. These consistencies are so numerous and remarkable that they invite the curious mind to explore them, if for no other reason than to explain the similarities away. Since the internal conflict in the hearts and minds of man can be symbolized by any implements, and since each mythology is retold in a way peculiar to that civilization, it's curious that ancient man would still tell a collective story regarding creation and history. The most well-known and prototypical of these creation stories comes from the Bible. In the first book of the Bible, God creates the universe, earth, animals, and humanity in 6 days, resting on the seventh day. The first two humans, named Adam and Eve, were given a paradisical land called the Garden of Eden. It is at this point a character called the Serpent, who is unambiguously described as the enemy of God, tricks Eve into eating the fruit from the tree that the Most High God forbade. The serpent's claim was that the fruit God so adamantly forbade was capable of remaking Eve as the gods. After biting into the forbidden fruit, Eve's eyes were opened, and she came to know good and evil. Eve then convinces her husband, Adam, to also eat of the fruit, thereby opening his eyes as well. When God discovered what the primal couple and the serpent had done, Adam and Eve were banished from paradise. Adam and Eve leave the garden and begin having children to the east. As humankind began to multiply, the serpent, also called the sons of God, began to lust after human women, and soon began to procreate with our race. The offspring of this union, beings who were half human and half angel, would be called the Nephilim. These Nephilim, often referred to as giants, had superhuman strength and abilities, and were known as men of renown. This early civilization, which included fallen angels, Nephilim, and humans, became increasingly wicked. After our wickedness reached a boiling point, God could no longer restrain his angry hand, so he alerts a righteous man named Noah that he is soon to destroy the world in a flood, and that Noah's family should begin straight away building a large boat so that he and his family may survive the earth's coming inundation. What's more, Noah was told to bring 2 of every animal so that earth may be repopulated after the flood waters subside. The vast majority of angels, Nephilim, and mankind were killed in this flood, which lasted for 40 days. Before the waters subsided, Noah released a raven from the ark to discover whether dry land was yet peaking above the waters, but it only flew back and forth. Next, Noah released a dove into the air, and the bird returned with an olive branch, indicating to Noah that there was indeed land nearby. With the waters subsiding, the ark would come to rest on a mountain named Ararat. Noah, his family, and the animals exited the ark and once more began to replenish the earth. After the descendants of Noah successfully repopulate the earth, they again lose God's favor. Instead of dispersing and filling every quarter of the planet, they concentrate in a land called Babylonia. The king of Babylonia, Nimrod, endeavored to build a tower that could reach heaven. This is the famous Tower of Babel. God, who is enraged by Nimrod's presumption and arrogance, takes matters into his own hands by confusing the languages of Nimrod's workforce. The Babylonian kingdom is instantly cast into disorder as its inhabitants no longer speak a single language. This act of confusing the languages accomplished God's original intent for humanity because it caused humanity to finally split up and occupy the whole earth and, most importantly, not reach heaven. Although Bible stories are the most well known, especially in the West, they are not the first and they are not unique. Humanity's relationship with the serpent is indeed a strange one. The nature of the reptile is alien to our own, so humans have a natural aversion to reptiles. Humans are characterized by both the cold-blooded way of the reptile and compassionate sympathies that violate our sense of self-preservation and seem to stem from a mystical place in the soul. And if a human were forced to choose between the death of a reptile and the death of a mammal, he or she would most probably consign that serpent to death rather than the likes of a bunny rabbit. So it's quite curious that humans have, for so many thousands of years, revered the serpent and frequently associated it with the gods. There's hardly a single point on the globe, or in history, whose local population did not associate the gods with serpents and dragons. In the Bible, the serpent is often spoken of as the enemy of God. And in one case, the Bible refers to Satan as that old serpent. Even though the whole of the Bible identifies the serpent with evil, even Jesus was heard saying, "Be as harmless as doves and as wise as serpents." The problem with this statement taken literally is that reptiles aren't exactly the geniuses of the animal kingdom. Warm-blooded animals are, on the average, more intelligent than reptiles. Considering the serpent to be a creature of wisdom is an interesting choice, considering that the serpent is mostly instinctual. Egypt, a civilization dating back to 2500 BC, allegedly, also has a pantheon of gods associated with the serpent. In fact, it is nearly unheard of for an Egyptian god to be depicted without a serpent. Even the pharaohs of Egypt wore a uraeus on their headpiece. The uraeus was a serpent, which symbolized the immortals. Gods of Greek mythology are likewise associated and often depicted with snakes. Meanwhile, here in the New World, the mythologies of the Mayans, Aztecs, Incas, and Native Americans is replete with serpent symbolism. Hinduism, the prevailing religion of India, is yet another religion whose gods are consistently associated with snakes. In China and the whole of the Orient, the immortal gods are connected to or described as dragons and serpents. In Islam, the serpent is associated with Satan and demons. In Voodoo, the gods are again associated with